Today on Sports Central, we're going over a college football game preview and prediction on a big matchup in the SEC in Week 15. This is going to be between the Auburn Tigers and the Mississippi State Bulldogs, two teams of which who are in very different situations right now. For Auburn, of course, they're 5-4, and even though they got 4 losses, they're definitely still capable of making it to a good bowl game, such as the Outback or the Citrus Bowl. So that's what's on the line here for them. For Mississippi State, they're 2-6. And really, their chances of making a bowl game are up at this point. The big thing for them at this point is whether or not they can get some good momentum heading into the 2021 season. We're going over a full game preview and prediction on this game here today, starting out with your team trends. Of course, Auburn lost to Texas A&M previously. Final score there was 20-31. So, I mean, Texas A&M is a very good team. Like, they're top 5 in the nation right now. They're ranked 5th overall. And considering that, Auburn kept the game pretty close. It was very close throughout the entire thing. All around, I'd say Auburn played pretty well in that game. So, honestly, that was not a terrible one for Auburn at all. For Mississippi State, they lost to Ole Miss. 24-31 was the final score there. So, that was also a pretty tough loss for them. But, they kept it close. And that's kind of been the trend for Mississippi State this season is the close losses. They lost to Ole Miss by 7, lost to Georgia by 7, lost to Texas A&M back a couple of weeks ago by only a couple of touchdowns. So, Mississippi State's kept it really close with a lot of teams this season. And this team is definitely that close to being a 4-4 team at least, but they've been kind of on the wrong end of the stick for a lot of their games, and they're now at 2-6, which honestly, for Mississippi State, this is a team that I think is much better than their record. They've got a lot of talent here, and this team is definitely capable of being a bowl team, I think. They're definitely capable of playing in a bowl game. It just has not been a very good season for them as far as winning games are concerned, because they've kept it really close once again. They've had a ton of close games. They just have not been able to execute and get a win. But this game's going to be on Saturday, December 12th, 7:30 p.m. Eastern in Starkville. So Mississippi State will be the home team here. Spread currently says Auburn by 6.5. ESPN FPI's got Auburn 74%. Vegas prediction also going with the Tigers here, 38-30 being the current projected final score. So Auburn is favored here in all 3 areas, obviously, and that's not much of a surprise considering Auburn is 5-4 and they've got 3 more wins than Mississippi State does on their side. Huge attack pressure for this game. Auburn's got 25 points per game and points allowed per game, so they're kind of even in that stat line. They got 222 passers a game, 187 rush yards. Then for yards allowed, they got 239 passing and the 179 rushing. So really on the Auburn side right now, they're pretty good on both sides of the ball. They've been pretty good on defense and pretty good on offense. They just have not been great in any of those areas, and that's the reason why Auburn has taken 4 losses this season, is because they really don't have a very proficient player. They got Bo Nix, who's been playing pretty well this season. He's got nearly 2,000 yards on the year with 10 touchdowns and 7 interceptions, but his interception rate's been kind of high in comparison to last year, and that's kind of been the problem for him. For Mississippi State, they got Rodgers, of course, being their top quarterback right now. 1,300 yards, 6 touchdowns, and 4 interceptions on the season is what he's had so far for them. But this has been a big passing team for Mississippi State. They don't have a running back that has rushed for more than 50 yards. Their top running back right now is Marks, he's had 45 carries, which he has had more than 50 yards. He's had 157 yards total in the season. But that's total on the season. 157 yards through 8 games is what he's had so far. That's an average of 23 rush yards per game for Mississippi State. So this is a major passing team here. If you look at the Auburn passing defense right now, they allow 239 pass yards a game. So really, those are some pretty good numbers for a pass defense. So for Auburn, they do have a pretty good secondary, is something that Mississippi State does need to know here. But the rushing defense for Auburn is also their rushing defense isn't near as good as their passing defense is, as they do allow 180 rush yards per game. But still, Mississippi State, this is going to be a team that's going to pass a ton because they really don't have a very reliable running back as of now. So that's something that you will notice in this game. But for Mississippi State, they got 18 points per game, 28 points allowed. So they allow 10 more points per game than they get. And once again, back to the yards allowed, they got 273 passing, and they've got a pretty good rush defense with 116 average rush yards per game. Here's your key points for this one as well. Auburn is still capable of making a good bowl game. We've already been over that, but Auburn is definitely a team that I think, they still are able to make it to the Outback or the Citrus Bowl, which both those bowl games are, they're not New Year's Six bowls, but they're definitely good enough to consider as a pretty good bowl game. So, for Auburn, you do have that on the line here, and if you take a loss here, that puts you at 5-5, and that puts you pretty much out of contention for a good bowl game. You'll probably go to a mediocre one at best. So for Auburn, you definitely need a win here. But for Mississippi State, this could be a good one for momentum for them. For Mississippi State this season, they've really had a tough go at it with injuries and with all the close losses, and this could be a really good win for them to try to flip the script a little bit and try to get a good win before we head into the off season, which is soon approaching. But how each team would win here for Auburn, obviously, I mean, as they're 5-4, if they can just perform really well offensively to start off the game, if they can put up a couple of touchdowns within the first few minutes, that should be really good for them. Make sure Mississippi State does not score early in the game. It's going to be something that Auburn really needs to do. As for Mississippi State here, I mean, they got to do really well in the passing game. I mean, obviously, they're not much of a rushing team, so they got to find a way to get past this Auburn secondary that's been pretty good this season. But for Auburn, on the flip side, you got to do the opposite of that. You got to make sure that their passing game is not productive. You got to make sure Rodgers can't pass a whole lot because that's going to help you a ton, considering Mississippi State is not very much of a rushing team. But in the end, I've got Auburn here pretty easily. I think Auburn is just the better team. They've been playing better recently. I mean, they kept it really close to Texas A&M, and they've had several pretty good wins over the season. It's just, I mean, their 5-4 record. This is a much better team than 5-4, I think, right now. They're still very talented. Bo Nix has got a tremendous amount of upside, and I think if you can get in the right rhythm, this Auburn team could have a huge game against Mississippi State here on Saturday. Halftime score is going to be 24-14. We're going to see the Tigers lead at the half by 10, so a pretty comfortable score there for Auburn. But in the final, it's going to be 38-20. We're going to see Auburn score a couple of touchdowns in the second half. Mississippi State is going to have a tough time getting anything going, and we're going to see an 18-point win out of Auburn here. Probability is going to be 75% towards Auburn as well, so I've got a 3 out of 4 chance of Auburn winning this matchup, so I am pretty confident that we will see the Tigers go to 6-4 here. But let me know your thoughts and comments below on this matchup. Let me know your score predictions, all of that down below. I appreciate you guys all hanging around. And if you enjoyed this preview, slap a like on it, subscribe as well if you're not already yet, as it really helps with the channel, and I'd really appreciate that. Once again, thanks again for watching. Stay tuned for more from All Sports Central. I'll see you all later.